pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome to the regular school committee meeting of the Attleboro School Committee, Monday, June 24th, 2019. This is your reminder that this meeting is being electronically recorded. With that, we're going to start tonight with a couple introductions of new administrative hires in the district, and for that I'll turn it over to the superintendent, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman Withers. Obviously, one of the things that we set out to accomplish in the district when this administration came into our positions is that we wanted to create a stable environment. That we believe that turnover at the administrative level was a disruption and a real obstacle to us building the school system that we desired. That being said, I don't think anyone could expect that we wouldn't have from time to time vacancies that arise, and so when those occur, and hopefully they occur with enough time in between that we have the ability to integrate people into the culture of the district and to maintain that stability. But when they occur, we really view them as important opportunities, opportunities to bring people into the district who offer a new lens on what we do, or to promote from within the district to give people opportunities for the professional growth that inspires them and lets them to pay back on all that they've learned through their time with us. And so I think tonight's a good example of how we can use these opportunities to strengthen the administrative ranks and to put ourselves in a position to do even better things. So we're very, very excited to introduce you to two administrators of the district. First, I'd like you to call up Mr. Rooney, who will introduce us to Carl Cappuccio.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. As Mr. Sawyer said, it's with great pleasure that I introduce you to our new Director of Career and Technical Education, Carl Cappuccio. Carl comes to us from Diamond Regional, where for the last 16 years he has been a CTE teacher. So he's been walking the walk in terms of a shop teacher for the last 16 years as a business teacher. Before that, he cut his teeth in the hotel industry. So he has a lot of work with supervising folks that we're trying to groom for the next level after Attleboro High School. Mr. Cappuccio went through 2 rounds, and we actually approached it from a different perspective this time around. We actually did a site visit with our finalists. So I'm grateful to Miss Ann Montagano, who is moving to a new role as Dean of Students at the high school, and also Carrie McGinnis, who were on the initial screening team. But then I'm also very grateful to the superintendent and also several of our CTE teachers who were a part of a focus group on Mr. Cappuccio's site visit. So we're very excited about the experiences that he brings. His passion was very clear in both of his visits here to the high school, and he's already hit the ground running. He has already attended a couple of district leadership team meetings, and he's been shadowing Ms. Montagano. So obviously that shows his desire to be successful. So I'm going to turn it over to him for a bit.
Thanks, Bill. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I cannot express how excited I am to be part of this Attleboro community and part of the Blue Pride community. I think the interviewing process was so impressive and thorough. And I've interviewed all over the world and all over the United States, believe it or not, for different jobs. I interviewed with the superintendent, Superintendent Sawyer, Principal Rooney, 2 vice principals, Ann Montagano, okay. Joanne Bradshaw, the CTE admin, was involved. And then most impressively was the faculty focus group, who put me on the spot a few times, which I kind of appreciated because those are the questions I would have asked if I were there. That kind of demonstration of culture, of respect and inclusion and collaboration, really, when I left that day, I said, wow. It wasn't one or two people making a decision. It was something that they wanted to do for the collective because they understood the importance of this position and positions such as this. So I went home pretty jazzed up. When I got the call from Bill and got the information, I couldn't stop grinning side to side. I just want to thank Superintendent Sawyer and Principal Rooney for inviting me to the district leadership team meetings last week. They were invaluable. Although my first day I had been shot at with a Nerf gun, which I thought was fun during our Alice training. And I learned the building very quick during the Alice training. So thank you for allowing me to have that experience. I plan on being on campus Mondays and Tuesdays in July. So if you happen to be on campus and want to stop down and say hello, please feel free to. And just thank you very much for having me here today.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mr. Larson?
Very familiar with Diamond.
Yep.
So I'm thrilled to hear that that's your background. We've had a number of co-op students and apprentice come out of that institution, so I have
Oh, excellent.
a feel for some of the students that come out of there, so I'm very impressed about that. And looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Storrs?
So you had mentioned that you were a teacher in CT. Can you tell me what subject it was?
Sure. When I first left the hotel industry, my first 2 years, I subbed for a year. And then my first 2 years, I taught U.S. history. And they were starting a new shop program called Business Technology, which is teaching students how to work in the world of business. And so they asked me if I thought I could get certified, and I knew I could. And so I was the second hire for that particular program. And I taught the exploratory program for 16 years. Now, the unique thing about that program is that our students graduate with 29 college credits with BCC, transferable. And we also did a dual enrollment program there, which I taught in. And so it really was, I could have taught another 10 years without a question. I loved it that much. But when an opportunity such as this comes upon, you have to make decisions. And it was a very difficult one to do. So our students were nationally certified in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. So they had an adult certification, all of those, prior to going out on co-op in junior year. And our co-op rates were usually 90 and sometimes 100% placement.
Thank you. Welcome.
You're welcome.
Mr. Quinn?
I don't know if you overlapped with him, but my high school baseball coach was Jimmy Pereira over at Seekonk. Great guy, spoke really highly of Diamond. What I really appreciate about you coming in is, having worked in a vocational school, you bring that lens to the comprehensive high school. So thinking about how we can stretch the opportunities for our students, but also blending the best of both worlds. So I'm really excited that you're able to bring not only just your teaching expertise, but that lens as well. If I could issue kind of a challenge to put in the back of your brain for the next 5-10 years out. I'm sure you've heard a lot of our mission and our vision, right, to be the center of a community united around education. And I think one of the crucial components of that is reviving the adult education programs. So whatever can be done was part of our comprehensive, the new building, if
Right.
more people can see the value of that directly, the better. I know that's like a long-term arc, but if I could just plant that seed, it would be fantastic to see down the road.
I was formerly the adult, they called it the night school, but the adult education program at night. It was a part-time position at Diamond. And so I was involved in Chapter 7. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Chapter 74 programs are now being made available to adults in certain areas. And so I'm very well aware. Yeah, I'm on board for that, 100%.
Excellent.
It's a brand new building and we have to use it.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome. I look
Thank you.
forward to seeing you in the fall or maybe over the summer and working with you in the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I would call up Ms. Joanne De Palma, who is going to introduce Lisa Boyle.
Hello, Principal De Palma. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Tonight I have the privilege of introducing Studley Elementary's very first assistant principal, which is very exciting for all of us. We have an amazing team, and we've done great work, and we really want to move forward, and we need good people to do that. When we were looking to fill the position, my hope was to find someone with the conviction, skills, and abilities that I needed to help Studley to help move forward, to help it grow, to help continue on its path. We were lucky enough to find just the right person from within. She has served Attleboro for 17 years, is an extraordinary educator. I know that from working next door to her and hearing her and watching her and learning a lot from her at that time when I was a teacher. She's a remarkable literacy coach. Our staff can't express how appreciative they are of her and her work and all that she's done for them and how often she's stood beside them, guided them, and helped them. And she's a source of positive, solution-oriented ideas for any circumstance, and I do mean any circumstance. We've dealt with a lot of things together, and she thinks out of the box. She comes ready to serve and do the right thing. Not only does she bring the professional strengths needed for this position, but also integrity, an amazing work ethic, humor, and energy. So I invite you to help me welcome Assistant Principal Lisa Boyle.
So this is all very real right now. I would just like to take this moment to thank everybody for this opportunity. I am so honored and privileged to be able to begin my administrative career not only in Attleboro but at Studley. I was hired right out of college in 2002, and I have worked the past 17 years at Studley, both the classroom teacher and then as a literacy coach. And I am so fortunate to work in a place that I love, with the people I love, the staff, families, and especially the students. I love what I do. I've always worked on the motto that if you find something you love, you'll never have to work again. And I truly love what I do. I love working with the kids and, watching them grow in all areas, academically, socially. And it's just a privilege. I am very excited to work under Joanne. I think we have a great working team. I think we complement each other in terms of our strengths, but also our goals and our vision. Everything's aligned, so it helps us move forward in a direction that will be impactful. So I am very excited to see what kinds of things we can accomplish together in this new role, and I look forward to that.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Geddes?
Congratulations. I won't say welcome since you've been here so long, but congratulations. As a Studley parent, I know what great work you guys do, and have gotten to see a lot of it firsthand. But generally speaking across the district, I'm excited to see another elementary school with an assistant principal position. I have had people express concern to me about us top-loading positions and salary with administrators, but in cases like this at our elementary level, I think that has such a positive ripple effect across the classrooms that it's a no-brainer for me. So I'm excited so congratulations to you, but thank you to the administration for continuing to prioritize these opportunities and to fill these roles across the district.
Questions? I would just say welcome. I know not welcome, you've been at Studley, but welcome to the new position. As Mr. Geddes said, it's been a goal to get assistant principals in our elementary schools, so I'm glad to see this continue, and I'm excited to see it happen at Studley and see you guys continue to do the great work that you've always done. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll move on to our business agenda tonight, and with that, we have the report of the superintendent. Mr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Chairman. To continue on our theme, we have more vacancies in the district at the administrative level. As you are already aware, we had the assistant principal at Brennan resign about a month ago, I think, at this point. I wanted to report to you that process has concluded, and Dr. Souza has named Lori Santarpio as the next assistant principal for Brennan Middle School. She will be introduced to you sometime this summer, but we're very excited to again be able to hire from within and to recognize talent within our midst, and to, we believe, find someone who we think can help move that school forward. Last week we learned that we will be losing Chris Wenz, the assistant principal at Thatcher Elementary School, and we will be beginning that process as soon as we get our new principal on board and ready to conduct that process. So that certainly will be a challenging situation where we're losing both administrators, but we will be providing plenty of support to the Thatcher community to help us to put them in the best possible place and to be successful for the coming year. So I did want to notify you of that. As you heard Carl allude to last week as part of our activities, I guess I should pause by just by saying that, you know, we begin planning for the next school year, honestly, in the fall of the preceding year, right? It begins with the budget planning. Mr. Furtado starts traveling around and talking to the principals, and we start to identify what our budget priorities are in preparation for our presentation in December on the budget planning process. So, you know, planning for a school year begins long before the current school year ends. That being said, when finally we have the close of a school year, that does allow us to really shift gears pretty significantly. And although we won't really be done with the school year that just finished into the fall, really, with some of the activities that have to be completed, the mark of the end of the school year really is a demarcation for us as we start to shift and can fully start putting our weight behind our preparations for the coming year. So as part of that, last week we had many meetings to deal with several different issues, but one of the things we did do was ALICE training for the administrators, and that's part of our preparation to prepare all of the staff in the district to be an ALICE trained district in the following school year. So that was pretty successful, and it was a bit of a trial run because we'll be doing it with staff come the fall. But it was also good for the administrators to get that training and to be prepared for what their staff are going to go through so that they can anticipate that experience. So that was a big accomplishment last week, yes.
For all the people that are watching at home, could you just briefly describe what ALICE training is? Yeah,
so ALICE is the approach we take to preparing for safety and security issues. Heaven forbid we ever have an active shooter in the district. ALICE is the system that we will be using to help our staff make good decisions about how best to manage that and to minimize the damage done by such an episode.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another thing I've been on my list to talk about tonight, briefly, I believe we've already notified you officially, but we were planning to share with you a letter that we were expecting that has yet to come from DESE. We completed the tiered focus monitoring review this year with DESE. They came in and looked at special education, civil rights, and through that process, we were very excited that we received no findings, no corrective actions required. I think really speaks highly of all the work we've been doing in these areas to make sure that this district is compliant and ensuring the rights of its students. So again, that we received that no finding conclusion to that process isn't new to us, but we were planning on kind of making a big deal of it at a school committee when we got the letter to share with you. It's a new process. I don't know if they forgot that they should do a letter or what, but I've given up on the letter. So I don't know. Somebody should drop some balloons. This is the big moment to let you know that that process went really well for us, and I think that Ms. Regan and Ms. Medeiros deserve special attention for their good work in these areas.
Skills.
I just want to say I'm thrilled because I think every time we do one, that means his policy changes. So I'm thrilled. It's no policy change this time.
That's right. Yeah. No, it takes a lot of work to get that kind of a result, and we're very proud.
How often do we have that tiered review?
It's a new process, but it's every 3 years. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then finally, I just wanted to update you that I met with the mayor this morning as part of our monthly meetings. At that meeting, I informed him that we are very hopeful that when the books are closed on FY19, we will be looking at carryover funds, and that we think that those carryover funds will exceed the $50,000 that we just received from the city to ensure that we would end the year in the black. So we are very excited to say that we were, through all that hard work that we've done this year, able to land at a positive conclusion. And he wanted you to all know that it would be his intention to pass that money back through to the schools in the next fiscal year in a way that made sense, probably along the lines of more capital projects as they come up, as they are sure to. And, because of the change in the way that the city's thinking about the school department and thinking of it as a department, we look for the city for financial support for the capital emergencies like we had for the pump at Hill Roberts, or the boiler situation at Coelho. In the past, we were on our own to address those issues, and we're very pleased that the city now sees that as something that they would help us on, and that's now funds that we can point to say that they're there in case we need them. We talked a bit about the capital project needs for the schools, and reviewed those, and continue to work on plans to address the big ones, especially the roofs at our middle schools and some of the cooling systems that we have in our buildings. We also talked about FY20, which Mr. Furtado is going to get into in just a moment, but he and I reviewed the fact that, with the city now viewing our substitute needs as being similar to the overtime needs of other departments, I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page, that that's how we were going to be addressing some of our budget concerns going into FY20, and there was agreement that that was the appropriate way to do it. And we even talked a little bit about planning for FY21, because, as I already talked about, the planning for that starts in a couple months. And the mayor did want me to share with you that it's his intention to really work on addressing staffing needs in the district and trying to find money to hire new positions. And we talked a little bit about how maybe one of the positions really should be another SRO for the middle school level to address many of the concerns we're having with the students of that age. So very fruitful conversation, very positive, and feel like we're completing what was a difficult year in a very good place with our relations with the city. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Furtado to talk more about FY20.
As this body knows, the city has already passed the municipal budget, which included the school budget. That school budget was $78,429,427.65. The Senate version of the state budget contains about $550,000 more than that for the city, for the Attleboro Public Schools. There was an announcement today from the State House that they don't expect to reconcile before July 1st. They are going to release what they call an interim budget. I don't know what that means, but they are going to release an interim budget and then continue the work on reconciliation. Their objective in the statement is that they are going to reconfigure school funding formulas. So that can only be good for us, although the order of magnitude isn't known at this time. So they're certainly going in the right direction. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the Senate level funding to arrive or come very close to that level. So as a result, what we...
Let's get to a question.
I'm sorry. Just to be clear, the 78 million, 78.1, give or take,
Yep.
does or does not include that 550,000 more?
Does not.
Does not. So that would be in
Not a
addition
penny
to
of
what
it.
we're getting once it's reconciled later on. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is that 550 all from the state, or some
Yeah.
of the, okay.
Yeah, so it should be a straight pass-through.
Okay.
There's no, so, this body has not yet voted on a FY20 budget. You know, we would ask that, because it's already passed, we would approve the 78,049,427.65. And then, as the state finishes up their work, come back and address whatever the changes are to our budget.
All right, so before we get into discussion, I guess I would entertain a motion to approve fiscal year 20 budget in the amount of $78,049,427.65.
So moved.
Second?
All right, discuss, Mr. Larson.
If the state comes through with additional funding, that would, I mean, obviously it's gonna come to the city. And then with what the city has already, I guess do they have the option of, like, I don't wanna say splitting that with us, or keeping some of it?
There may
toward-
be, but this
Because,
is,
I mean, there's a certain amount of money that they give us above net school spending.
right.
So
So
legally speaking, because they're probably, and they are in excess of the amount we're talking about,
Yep.
they could legally pocket it.
Or
but
do
the- or something in between,
split,
but the
or-
mayor has already committed to pass through
Okay. I just,
the
pure-
delta
pure
in
Chapter
its
70.
entirety.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's a choice, not a requirement.
Pure Chapter 70 funds, but the city will remain far enough above net school spending to keep it if they wanted to.
But we have
Well,
an
I guess that was
we have the assurance that they will pass through whatever the state does, whether it's less, that amount, whatever it is, they'll pass it through.
Yeah, that
Yes,
was
sir.
the assurance.
Okay, Mr. Pettis?
thank you.
Sorry, if I had known you were that close to finishing, I would have waited on my last question. What are the plans for this additional money when it does come through? Knowing that you've always got a wish list, what
Well-
would
Not
this
a
be
wish
earmarked
list.
for?
I think that's a great question because the conversation regarding substitutes was critical because we wanted to fund our needs as best we could prior to the start of the year. We don't want to be hiring teachers in November and that sort of thing. So we've configured the budget to accommodate that. So where we have where this money would go when it comes in is to the substitute lines.
So,
We've relieved the substitute lines, put those dollars into teaching lines to make sure we have the staff that we would expect and need to have in November and in September, and then when the funds come in, fund the substitute lines.
So to remind everyone, we had a level service number that was higher than the number
Right.
that we're asking you to approve. And, in May, we had discussions about how to handle that, and there were obvious and legitimate concerns about some of the proposed ways of dealing with that. In the end, we didn't do those things. What we did was we made the move in the substitute lines so that things like out-of-district tuitions reflect what we know to be the liability rather than less than, as we had talked about, as one of the ways to handle it. So the place that takes the pressure from that is the substitute line, which is why, an increase in funding will basically go to cover what we know to be a liability there.
And so we would not need to go to the city for
as
those
much.
As much. Okay.
so when we had the list of the 4 or 5 things that was suggested that we look at cutting, I think substitutes might have been one of them.
Yep.
It all got transferred to substitutes. and
Well,
then-
there were a couple small things that stayed in place, like one of them was unemployment insurance, right? So
Legal
there
fees.
were some legitimate items that weren't necessarily, as much of a risk, shall we say, that we said, oh yeah, that there are savings there. So where we agree with the city that there was an opportunity for savings, we did those things. But there were other things like the special ed tuition line that would have been just hoping that people left town, really, is what it came down to. And we don't have to engage in that kind of thinking right now.
Can you explain a little bit what you meant by, I think it was you, Superintendent Sawyer, said earlier that the thought process is treating substitutes like city departments treat overtime?
Yeah, so the other major departments will just go, police and fire, when they have overtime needs, and, that the nature of their work requires it, they go to the mayor, and he requests funds from the municipal council to cover those additional expenses. And those things are variable, so I mean, I don't really know the city budget well enough to know whether they have some money in their overtime lines. I imagine that they do, but either way, whether there's some or zero, the point is that they know that they have a liability there, but they plan to pay for it out of free cash. And we're saying that, we have a similar liability, and that we don't know how much substitutes are going to be, and it's sort of a cost of doing business that's above and beyond the cost, the structural costs that we have. And so, we got into a discussion about how those are very similar, and the city has accepted that premise and agreed that, it would be better for us to use our budget on paying for the teachers we know we need, rather than putting that money aside for subs that we may or may not need.
Mr. Larson and Mr. Quinn? Sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, we have never, to the best of my knowledge, really ever been able to fully fund budgetarily the substitute line item. For all the time that I've been involved in the finance subcommittee meeting, that's always the part of the meeting where, we're 50,000 in the hole, we're 100,000 in the hole, and it's going to get worse because we're getting into the spring and in the summer. So I know it's never been fully
Correct.
budgetarily funded from that point of view, and I'm sure a lot of departments, as you say, the same overtime way. So I guess I'm partially concerned that we're taking a line that we know is going to have a deficit. We're creating a bigger deficit in it to shore up other lines, and then hope that this other money or some other money comes in to support the substitute line. That we've never been close to
Right.
covering. I mean, I
But
know
the
it's
op-
the nature of how we have to run the business that we're in,
Yeah.
but I'm concerned.
The options are, given the final budget number passed by the city, we were gonna have a liability no matter what we did. And so it was a question
Right.
of
Yeah.
strategically, how do you handle that? And again, hiring teachers late in the cycle is always a iffy thing. Especially when you have a known need. We're not.
Yeah.
So I should also mention that there are a few positions that we are delaying hiring for until we see the final number from the state, as another way of trying to mitigate the large variable here.
New positions or filling current positions?
New positions.
Mr. Quinn?
So that goes to my question. So some of the positions from that urgent needs budget will be filled as a result of this, because it seemed like the way that you had shifted the deficit, or some of the things that they had taken off the table, legal fees, the sewer being some of them, would, combined with the influx of funds from the Senate, would then free up potentially money for those urgent needs. Have you identified any of those yet, or are you still waiting to?
So I think one of the more significant ones is an additional adjustment counselor at Attleboro High School, and where that's being paid through a grant.
Okay.
So that one's going to happen one way or the other. But yes, that's a position off the urgent needs that we are addressing.
But you're holding the positions on the urgent needs list until you get the final numbers from the Senate. Is that accurate to say? Okay.
Mr. Storrs?
Okay. So, I was reading an article recently regarding tuition, special education tuition, and I think it indicated that there was some additional funding that was either allocated or discussed, as well as has our numbers gone up? I think the article actually indicated something about the numbers had gone up since July 1st. I mean, since the last time we had a meeting regarding this. I hadn't heard any of that, so I wanted to verify.
No, our tuition needs are right now very close, still above what the city had asked us to fund. So would have resulted in, you know, a known deficit there. But we have, again, funded the budget as we know we need today entirely.
So the
Other
special-
than this, the substitute line. So sped tuitions are covered. They are like close to what they were this year. So they're, again, higher than the city wanted us to fund them at, but they're fully funded.
Mr. Domenici?
So, one of the questions or points I wanted to make, right, is, and I was trying to pull it up while we were talking, our level services budget was around 78.6, 78.7. So, not, I think, you know, even with the Senate, if they were to give 550, we may be right at where we were looking for or slightly under, right? And that's under a best case scenario, right? Because it's likely that between the Senate and the House, some sort of compromise will come in because the House's number was less. Is that
Yeah,
that's
we're gonna
likely?
be close to where that is, and again, you know, a lot happens from May to September.
Sure.
Unfortunately, last year it wasn't good, but you know, when we have staff retire and staff leave, we typically generate some funds
Of course.
by their replacement over the course of summer. That's when most of that happens. So, you know, there's going to be an opportunity to address the urgent needs positions, assuming we get the Senate funding.
Oh, sure. And I was just pointing out that even if, you know, straight up, that money, if we were going to do nothing but refill where our gap is, I don't think we're quite where the number is, even with the Senate number. And yet I'm also hopeful that it's just the start of a process over the time where the state continues to increase their funding. And then I also looked at this concept of treating the school department like every other department is not a one-time event. In other words, when there are gaps or funding concerns or overtime, so to speak, that we have that option going forward to go to the city. Whether the funds are there might be a different story, and that's part of the roll of the dice, Mr. Larson, that I also concern myself with. But if that's how this is going to be, my understanding was that this was like a new concept point forward, not just to
Correct.
cover this gap.
Yeah,
We've never had this opportunity before.
and it's
so.
a significant opportunity.
Okay.
Mr. Geddes?
So two questions that both somewhat align with what Mr. Domenici just mentioned. One, if we're filling the substitute line with this extra Senate money, but there are other lines that were reduced, there is the possibility that not only would we go to the city for potential additional needs in the substitute lines, but also legal fees, sewer,
Yeah.
some of those
So,
other lines.
Mr. Larson already explained, I mean, we're always operating pretty tightly substitutes. And unlike in other years where, you know, we had more flexibility to maybe, you know, address a problem, that's been largely reduced. So the likely outcome is that we need help unless the number that we end up getting from the state is markedly different than what we're expecting.
And so along those lines, and this isn't something I'm advocating for, it's just more out of curiosity, was there any consideration given to the idea of, okay, we're getting this additional 550,000, let's put this elsewhere outside of the substitutes lines, since the city is already expecting us to go for substitute money as overtime down the road?
I think that the first priority is to try to get to a place where,
We can operate.
yeah, where we think that the money in the budget equals the amount of money we're going to spend. I mean, that's the most, I think, fiscally prudent thing to do as an organization.
Right, I just didn't know if okay, we weren't planning on getting this money, so
Listen,
let's add some staff and.
We have real serious staff needs, and maybe I should take this moment to just point out, you know, the Sun Chronicle had an article that showed how Attleboro would fare under changes to the funding formula, and, you know, I think our number was 9 million according to the article, and that, you know, the neighboring communities were getting a pittance of that. In fact, one of them were going to get less, right?
Seacock's gonna lose, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure that the article really drove home the point that the reason for that is because of the inequity that exists now that we're dealing with, right? You know, the reason why they would give us $9 million is not because they like us so much, you know.
Right.
I'm not that good of a lobbyist, right? It reflects a real need that is not being addressed currently. So, you know, we are really operating from. I mean, well, you know, we're saying 11 million, they're saying 9 million. You know, potato, right? Like, that we have a real serious problem. So, as we do every year, we will do our best to make every dollar go as far as we can and get every last person that we need in the district doing good work. So, absolutely, we're going to try to find that balance. But I think our message is that the number that the city has passed, that we're asking that you approve tonight so that we can operate a budget on July 1st, we want to make sure you know that that number is short of what we can in good conscience say is enough. If it ends up being that number, we'll work with the city to make it work as best we can. If we get more from the state, we'll put those dollars to the best use possible, but we think some of that's going to be just to backfill how exposed we are.
Mr. Domenici?
Just because it's in the same conversation, just a point. I happened to attend the budget roundtable that Senator Roush and Senator Lewis, who heads the Senate Finance Committee, put together at Millis Public Library last week. And one of the points that he had made is the kind of the tiered approach that they're trying to look at from a socioeconomic standpoint. And I think the way it was like, you know, whether it was like a 0 through 10 rating, Attleboro was somewhere around a 7 or 8. So the higher you go, you know, I guess it shows more of the inequity as a result of other you know, figures, whether it's social and economic, other different events, capacity for the city or town to cover. So, though, you know, these are all still things they're working on. At least there was encouragement to try to, that at least on the Senate side, and I'm sure they'll gain some ground in the House, that they're trying to look at a way that does kind of formulate that budget. So it just, to me, it added a little bit of clarity around how the Sun Chronicle article had come out. But obviously, you know, it's June 24th, and we don't have any sort of decisions yet. So these are kind of the wait and hope kind of events. I'm just personally, you know, I'm encouraged that the city is aware of you know, or now going to treat us, the school department, like every other department, so that, you know, funding needs are there, and encourage that, you know, the state is trying to do their part to help us with this gap for now, and then hopefully going forward in future years, we, you know, this discussion becomes a little bit like we continue to chip away at what we think our total needs are. But I found it interesting, and it's, you know, I guess we're fortunate that our local representation is pulling strong for us, and we heard a lot of stories from all the surrounding communities, even those that are suburban that are struggling. And when I stepped up there, Senator Lewis was well aware of Attleboro and started rattling off numbers, socioeconomic status, where we fit in their tier. So I'm encouraged that they're taking this as seriously as I think they should. And I just figured it's opportunity while we're talking about the budget and having this vote to you know, have an encouraging point.
Thank you. Mr. Larson?
I, you know, saw the same story in the paper, and ironically, the first thing that I thought of was, if we added the $9 million to our budget, we're still going to be just under the state average. Thinking back to another conversation, I'm
Yes.
saying, wow,
It's very telling.
almost going to make average.
Almost.
Anyone else?
Oh, sorry, but you just reminded me that there was discussions about the average, and, you know, I made the point publicly that, you know, we were striving to get to average spending, whereas other communities may be able to spend more. And one of the points that was brought up is the state funding formula doesn't really reward for excellence. So, you know, that point was driven home to maybe see if there's a way to go about that, because we have a lot of achievement for what the budget we have, it would be great if there was some incentive to continue to reward that, and, you know, hopefully that, that was not falling upon deaf ears, so.
And I just want to make clear to the committee, the number you're about to vote on does not include any Medicaid reimbursement, which we split with the city, and does not include the stabilization fund set up for special education tuitions.
The amount of the stabilization fund they passed was?
$200,000.
Okay, so we have a motion and seconded. I guess, well, first I would just say, you know, this is always probably the most discouraging topic discussions we have all year, every year. You know, I think first I want to thank the administration for their hard work, working with the city and you know, coming to a solution that I think is livable and makes sense given given the realities of our situation. I know it hasn't always been easy, so I appreciate you guys building the relationship and making progress there. You know, it's disappointing that, you know, in a year where the state, you know, came through with higher numbers, that we're still you know, clawing to get to level services. I was hopeful with the increase from the state that maybe we could make some progress this year instead of just treading water. But you know, I do think that we've done all that we can, and I thank you for the work, especially in switching over kind of where those cuts were made, because I think the concern by the committee at some of the original suggestions were real and made sense. So thank you. So with that, we'll do a roll call vote. The motion was to approve the budget of $78,049,427.65. Start with Mrs. Sawyer.
Yes.
Mr. Geddes.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Scales.
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes. Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Storrs.
Yes.
Mr. Quinn.
Yes.
Mr. Domenici.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Okay. Next, we have approval of our minutes from our June 10th, 2019 meeting. The minutes were circulated with your packet. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion, corrections, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. Pursuant to Life Touch contract subsection 12, motion to approve the commission checks as broken down in the memorandum dated June 14th, 2019 for a total amount of $3,735 to benefit the Attleboro elementary and middle school students.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $3,478.50 from 99 pledges to the Attleboro High School softball team.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $1,750 from Music Drives US to the Attleboro High School band.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $18,000 from the Studley PTO to the Studley Gifts donation line, and these funds will be used to update their Chromebooks and the books in their library.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws 53A 1/2, motion to accept the playground equipment as defined in invoice 29870 for a total amount of $3,558.70 from the Willett PTO to the Willett Elementary School.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $6,398 from the Hill Roberts PTO to be deposited in the gifts donation lines to purchase Chromebooks for instructional use in the classrooms.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $3,000 from the Hyman Fine PTO to be deposited in the gifts donation line to purchase Chromebooks.
So moved.
Second?
All those in, Mr. Geddes.
I'd just like to point out, these last four motions, all from PTOs, totaled over $31,000 in donations in terms of equipment or cash to improve technology. So I don't think we say it often enough, but thank you to our PTOs, because after having such a grim budget discussion, the parents in the community are doing a great job stepping up and closing some gaps for us. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well said, Mr. Quinn.
And thank you, but with the caveat that we can't be depending on the PTOs to fund
Right.
what is essentially a necessity in this era. You know, because as while we're creating these opportunities, particularly with technology, that this is ultimately a disposable resource. and that we need to figure out, I mean, that goes to the point of that 9 million.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes the consent agenda. Next, we have open forum. I don't see anyone here who'd like to address the committee unless you do, Mrs. Singer? No? Good. Okay, I will close.
Mr. Withers.
Yes. Mr.
Chairman Withers, because it's open forum and it's quick, I just wanted to give a reminder to folks, because we're gonna be going into summer sessions, we'll only be meeting, once a month, that the Attleboro moving wall, project is well underway. It will be bringing the moving Vietnam Wall Memorial to Highland Park at the end of September. I am helping out the Veterans Agent on his, one of his subcommittees, and just using the opportunity for those who may be listening. It's going to be a great opportunity for the entire community, and I specifically look at the opportunity that we may have to bring all of our Attleboro Public School levels to come and see, a really moving tribute. And I'll be reaching out to the different PTOs to have discussions about it. I know Mr. Rooney has been working on agenda at the high school, including curriculum. There is a site, attleboromovingwall.org, for anybody listening to get some more information. And also, there will be other fundraisers and fun events going on throughout the summer as we raise funds to bring the wall here. So just an opportunity to let folks know that that is underway, and really excited to see that come our way to the new Highland Park in the end of September.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other, that will close open forum. Anybody else have any business? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
I never know to do that as business.